Hi. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. It's great to be here. I'm just adjusting my screen a little bit and then we can get going. Cool. So before I begin, I just want to share a quick content note to say that I will very briefly um, make references to sexual violence. And if that's not for you today, I totally understand. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me today and for attending the first Global Virtual Summit on Deepfake Abuse. A huge thank you to Sophie Compton and the rest of the team at My Image, My Choice, as well as the event partners for bringing us such a vital event and facilitating these urgent conversations that we need to be having about online image-based abuse. My name is Lucy Morgan. I'm the purpose editor and deputy website editor at Glamour UK. And the question I usually get asked when I introduce myself is, what does a purpose editor actually do? And, I'm always thrilled to fill people in. Essentially, my job is to create and commission content that aligns with Glamour's ethos of empowering women, which is a really cool, if daunting job to have. It's also my job to bring our readers campaigns and policy ideas about issues that really matter to them, whether that's reproductive health or, as is more relevant to today's conversation, the rise in deepfake abuse. So before I became an editor at Glamour, I was always obsessed with feminist activism. I survived sexual violence as a teenager and spent much of my student years neglecting my English literature course and focusing on building Newcastle University's Feminist Society and trying to change the world that way. And when I left university, I went straight into working in a women's refuge where I supported the most incredible women whose lives had been completely interrupted and upended by male violence. Ultimately, this experience sent me back to university, this time for a law degree, where I did my best to arm myself with knowledge about the criminal justice system and how, almost by design, it fails women. So empowering women, particularly other survivors, has always been at the heart of my life and work. And I really feel as though the stars aligned when I joined Glamour, first as a freelance writer, where I was given the freedom to investigate issues pertaining to women's safety, as well as writing about my own personal experiences of male sexual violence. In 2020, I joined as purpose editor with a remit of empowering our readers to act on issues that really matter to them. I didn't know where to start, to be honest. The world is a hostile place for women, and while we're quick to pat ourselves on the back in the UK for not being as bad as so-called developing countries, which of course our past and present governments have helped destabilize, the ongoing threats to our health and safety are inescapable. Our reproductive rights hang in the balance. Disabled women experience rape and sexual assault at higher rates than non-disabled women with little to no specialist support. And transgender women are being systematically denied their personhood and blamed for all of society's ills, often by the very feminists who should be standing up for them. I'm lucky to work for a media brand like Glamour, where we can shout about these issues, but it was important for me to identify one specific area for us to focus on if we wanted to enact change. Most of the issues impacting women, including the aforementioned, can be traced back to transgressions of women's bodies. We aren't trusted to make healthcare decisions about our bodies. We aren't listened to when we say or indicate no. And our genitalia are crudely debated to determine our proximity to womanhood. And the thing that connects all these transgressions is a lack of women's consent. And so the idea to publish a survey into Glamour readers' attitudes about consent was born. We launched the Glamour Talks Consent survey in summer last year in partnership with Refuge and Rape Crisis England and Wales. These are two incredible charities who are on the front lines of fighting violence against women, as well as commissioning vital research that can be used to make women's voices heard in places where they're all too often silenced. The survey looked primarily at women's perceptions of physical sexual consent, such as the legal definition of consent, the effectiveness of sex education, and the rates of sexual violence. We found some interesting statistics, and I'm going to share a couple with you now. 43% reported that they'd been sexually assaulted, with 1 in 4 saying this had happened to them more than once. Only 21% of those who had been sexually assaulted felt that they could report the incident to the police. 23% of the audience told us they had been raped, with 9% of those having experienced it more than once. Again, this was higher amongst disabled women, with 39% telling us they had been raped, 23% of those more than once. We also learned that 98% of our readers, this was out of a sample size of nearly 4,000, were confident about the legal definition of sexual consent, but only 9% could recall being taught about sexual consent by the education system in the UK. Now, we also included a section about online and digital consent, which we felt as a digital brand was an especially important area for us to explore. We included questions about image-based abuse, also called revenge porn, sexual assault in the metaverse, and almost as an afterthought, I have to admit, a question about deepfake abuse. It's amazing that a year ago, the issue of deepfake abuse wasn't really on my radar. If I knew what it was, which I think I faintly did, it wasn't something I thought could ever happen to me or would impact the women in my life. However, the results of Glamour's survey rocked my entire perception of digital consent and how the threat of online sexual violence can impact our day-to-day lives. Only a small number of the survey participants had experienced deepfaking. 2% said it had happened to them. However, with a sample size of nearly 4,000, this is not an insignificant number. But 91% agreed that deepfake technology poses a threat to the safety of women. And that word, threat, stood out to me. The Oxford Dictionary defines threat as an intention to inflict pain, injury, damage, or another hostile action on someone in retribution for something done or not done. Those last words, something done or not done, really stand out to me because there's nothing that women can do or not do to avoid the threats of deepfake abuse. Beyond scrubbing the internet clear of any photos of ourselves, which A, doesn't sound possible, and B, why the hell should we have to? What can we do? How do you move around the world when you feel threatened? How do you move around the internet when you feel threatened? In evidence submitted to Parliament, Claire McGlynn, a professor of law at Durham University, who many of you will already know, said being online is now a fundamental part of participating in society, but online abuse has the effect of silencing women. With specific regard to deepfake abuse, she later adds, the harm experienced by digitally altered images can be equally devastating as with real images. I wanted to shout about all of this, about our finding that 91% of our readers felt that deepfake technology was a threat to them. I wanted to do something about it, like many of you here today. With that in mind, I reached out to Greg Clark, who is a Conservative MP for Tunbridge Wells and chair of the Science, Innovation and Technology Committee, to host a roundtable in Westminster exploring how this threat impacts everyday women. We were joined by such an incredible array of speakers, including Seyi Akiwowo, the founder and CEO of Glitch, Emma Pickering, the head of Technology Facilitated Abuse and Economic Empowerment at Refuge, and Charlie Howard, who is the founder of Squish Beauty and an activist for women's rights. Again, thank you to Sophie Compton and My Image, My Choice for their attendance and invaluable insight at this event. I learned so much from this roundtable, including how deepfake abuse specifically impacts Black women, how tech companies have the power, should they wish to use it, to remove this content, as well as the role of regulatory bodies such as Ofcom. I'm also aware, thanks to the tireless advocacy of groups like the Sex Workers Union and Decrim Now, that sex workers are often left out of discussions about deepfake abuse, despite the fact that their images are also used without their consent, often to harass other women. I'm still learning so much about deepfake abuse, and it's thanks to events like these that I feel as though it's a battle we can get ahead of and one that they can win. And I can assure you all that right now, Glamour UK will be with all of you every step of the way. And please get in touch if you'd like to work with us on this. Thank you so much for your time. I think I've slightly run out of time, but thank you.